fox and the green fox, little fox and the blue one, fox and the yellow one, and the little and the fox and the green fox.
Good Will Hunting, A Beautiful Mind, Antoine Fisher, Girl Interrupted, Cruel Intentions. The 90s and early 2000s really loved their therapy-themed cinema. But it hasn't been until recent years that mental health care has really grown in the U.S., despite recent downtrends in actual mental health outcomes. On today's episode of You Can Call Me Karen, we are diving into the world of therapy to debate, is it even working?
Fox.
Hi, ladies. This is Karen.
Hootie hoo!
Okay, there we go. Yes, this is Karen. That was Manny, if you weren't clear. I am joined by my lovely co-hosts, Manny.
Hi.
And Steph.
Hello.
Hi. Today we're conducting a live therapy session.
Hey.
Yay! So we're going to be sharing our deepest, darkest secrets.
My favorite. My absolute favorite.
Yes.
I'm not a water cooler conversation kind of gal.
Exactly. Okay, but before we are talking about therapy, I want to hear who you calling, Karen.
Hey.
Oh, season 3. You said it with your chest, your whole chest, Karen. That was so...
Did you see my look of panic when you were like,
Yeah.
season 3? I was like, oh no, not good. I'm working on
She's
it.
gonna lecture you like, Karen, it's season 3.
That's what I thought.
Get it right or pay the price.
Oh my god.
Who's kicking us off?
But wait, did you guys even, Karen, I know you don't know that reference, but Steph, did you know that
No,
reference?
I know it.
What,
I can't
say it with your chest?
pinpoint. No,
No.
get it right or pay the price.
Oh, yes. We run, we jump, we swim and play.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
yeah,
row
wait.
and go on trips.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah. Don't say anymore. We'll have to pay for that.
Okay. And I take that as the highest compliment because that means it was on key.
Wait, what was it? Salute your shorts?
Salute
Yes.
your shorts.
Get it right or pay the price. Yeah, okay. I'm catching up.
Where do you think those guys are right now?
They're like,
Yeah.
I was going to say like Brad Pitt. It's, that's how they got their start, the big names.
Yeah, they're definitely level of Brad Pitt, I'm sure. I can go first with my Karen story. I was thinking about this when I was prepping for my episode for next week with spirituality and also with our conversation about performative allyship last week. When right after like the George Floyd movement started, I saw a woman post something. I can't even remember who the individual was that she had posted about. And I said, oh my God, I love her. She's my spirit animal. And the
I remember
woman,
this one.
have I shared this Karen story before?
I mean, I don't think on the show, but you've shared
okay.
it with us. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was because I was like, I can't remember if I've shared this or not.
I wasn't saying because I recognize the story. I just know like.
I remember this story because it pissed me off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited now.
Then but let's be clear, she was a white woman, responded back to me, we can't say that anymore. And my response was, or we reserve that for indigenous people for their spiritual practices and whatnot. And I was like, so Steph, I saw your reaction just now, so you know where I went, right? I'm like, well, in Black history, we were not solely monotheistic. We also came from polytheistic backgrounds as well. So that's not just reserved for, you know, brown and indigenous cultures. That
Period.
is, yeah. And we'll, and that
Period.
period. And so,
End
yeah, so that I was thinking about that as I was prepping for my episode for next week, and you know, where the co-opting of certain terms and the telling of who's allowed to say what, the policing of certain terminology, the you know, I have this knowledge now, let me teach you. I don't know. There was a lot there. What are y'all's reactions to that?
Yeah, that burns me up inside. I can't think of the specifics, and maybe I'll just save this because Steve shared a story very similar, where, you know, a white woman was imparting her knowledge and what she's learned on the city and how they should proceed. And while she might have had a point, it's just kind of like, you know, he was just like, it just seemed performative because it was just coming from this like show off place as opposed to genuine, you know, concern and preservation of whatever it was. So I'm gonna get the details and I'll save that for another story.
Okay,
but
good.
it was very like exactly where you were going with, like, your reaction and my reaction to this woman saying you can't say spirit animal is the same thing. It's the same thing.
I think it's interesting because it's like white women specifically, and my name is Karen, so I can say this, but we I don't know, we do this thing where it's like we learn something that we think is right, like we have the best of intentions behind it sometimes, and then we want to impart it on everyone that's like leaving the door slightly open. And it's like, white ladies, we need you to correct white ladies and white men. Like, don't correct Manika. Manika's fine. She's doing what she's doing. Don't worry about what she's doing.
Thank you.
Feel free to correct Karen. Yeah, Karen, she'll take some correction. It's just, I don't know. I just feel like there's times where I'm like, okay, but you want me to speak up, but then you don't want me to speak up. Like I hear that argument, but like, don't speak up when it comes to white people. Like fix the white people. You know?
You've done enough speaking up to people of color.
Yeah. Just like if you have one rule, when a white person says something ignorant and dumb, correct them. Yes. They're the problem.
That's your job.
I think at the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, there was a lot of messaging around it's our turn, white people, to listen. And I feel like that message got lost very quickly once, you know, knowledge was gained and they started to read more and have more to say. And then I felt like people went back to centering themselves. And so like exactly to your point, Karen, you know, it feels easy to correct a person of color because that's how it always is.
White supremacy.
Because white supremacy. And so, you know, the challenge is how are you changing your life and your contribution, and how are you making impact on your community, not on the people who are at the receiving end of oppression.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I mean, I will say, to give her credit, that she took the feedback well of like, I didn't consider that. So it's also of, you know, your learning is surface level. And to what Karen was saying, that's what white supremacy is. It taught you that, like, when you get just a little, that we don't have as much depth to us, but it's really that the way that we learned and the things that we learned are different than what you learned, right? And so ours is really, 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 really deep. So when you read that one book or those 2 books, or send in that professional development, or go to that one conference, just know you are scratching the surface of generational history. And you are not there yet, you know? And you thinking that you've grasped or gained or attained a goal or achieved something, if that's your intention or motive, then you're still wrong. You're still wrong. You know? Okay. That was mine.
Well, I am glad that you went first, because I have 2 stories and I wasn't sure which story I wanted to go with, but I feel like this leads into. I'm calling to the table. I'm calling the manager on. In the news, maybe you guys have heard about this, but.
Wait, really quick.
Sure.
It is June 6th.
Okay. Yes, you're right.
News will
so
change
good about that.
by the moment.
Sure,
You are so good about that.
Yes, June 6th, just for frame of reference
June
for our
6th,
listeners.
2025.
Yes, and if you don't hear or see from us after this, I'm just kidding. You know why.
Gosh. Our safety is in. I don't know what the word is. So in danger. I'm calling to the table a Broadway icon-ish, Patti LuPone. Have you guys heard about this?
I'm not hip. No.
Wait, what? Who?
Patti LuPone.
Okay.
Okay. Patti LuPone.
Yeah, this is not where I thought you were going.
Yeah.
The date probably matters less now.
Well, she's a Broadway icon. I mean, she's been in many a musical, Tony Award winning, blah, blah, blah. She was called to the table by the Broadway community, first by another Broadway star. Her name is Keisha Lewis. And Keisha Lewis is currently starring in the Broadway play Hell's Kitchen. Patti LuPone is performing in a play, I think close to where Hell's Kitchen is performing. And she raised concern, Patti LuPone, about the quote unquote quote noise and how loud Hell's Kitchen was. And that she could hear the music cues from her theater, and it was being disruptive to her show.
Oh, God, Patty.
So, Patti LuPone did reach out to the producers at Hell's Kitchen and asked them to make changes to their sound cues because it was disrupting her show. And after she did so, they did make adjustments, and Homegirl sent flowers thanking them for that. So after that happened, Keisha Lewis got on her Instagram and recorded a video calling her out. She did like an open letter saying that what she considered Patti LuPone to do was to be a bully, because she was using her power and influence to impact another production. And she also was saying that there's racial microaggressions in using the vocabulary loud. There was also a fan who saw Patti LuPone outside her show, and they wanted Patti's autograph, and they had a playbill from Hell's Kitchen, and Patti LuPone said, "Oh, I'm not going to sign that. Their show's too loud." And in Keisha Lewis's open letter recording herself speaking, she cut to that footage of Patti LuPone turning down a fan because Hell's Kitchen is too loud. And so I sat and watched and listened to Keisha Lewis's explanation as to how it's right, what she defines racial microaggressions. She defines bullying, and she explains exactly why Patti LuPone was wrong here, or just an opportunity for her to reflect a little bit. Patti LuPone was then interviewed by the New Yorker, and she like popped off about Keisha Lewis. You know, in Keisha Lewis's letter, she referred to herself and Patti LuPone as peers and colleagues because they're both veterans of Broadway.
Yeah.
Patti LuPone said she's no veteran. She's only been in 7 shows.
Wow,
I've been in
she
31.
doubled down.
She doubled down, and she called her the B word.
What?
Yup, in the interview. So then other Broadway
Holy
community
smokes.
members wrote a petition asking her to be banned from the upcoming Tony Awards. And 500 actors on Broadway signed it.
Whoa.
Asking
like,
for Patti to be
For Patti
out.
LuPone to be like excluded. They said that she is being a bully, and so people were like not here for it. And and another person who Patti LuPone went after was Audra McDonald, the angel on earth. Because after Keisha Lewis's post, Audra McDonald commented underneath and just did like hearts or something like supportive, like, you know, amen or seriously. I can't remember what it was, but it was in support of what Keisha Lewis was saying. In that same interview, Patti LuPone, they were like, what do you think of Audra McDonald, who has been nominated for her role as Gypsy Rose, who Patti LuPone played? And they're like, what do you think of her performance? And apparently in the article, it says that she stared at the interviewer for 15 seconds in silence and then went, what a beautiful day, and didn't even respond. And Audra McDonald is about to be the most decorated Broadway star on the planet. And so I'm calling Patti LuPone. She's my Karen of the week because I've been just riveted by this story. Yeah. She did issue an apology, but her opening line is something to the effect of, I've been known to speak my mind and I never apologize until today. That's how she started the apology.
I don't want your apology. Get out of here.
And that's pretty much what the feedback has been from what I've read, is people are like, too little too late. Like,
holy smokes, 500 names is a lot.
That's a lot.
That means that this has been going on. She should have been apologizing because these people have been waiting for this moment.
And that's what people were saying, is her apology seems more from her PR people telling her it's time. Right. Because she initially doubled down when people brought this to her attention. Like, what did you think of what Keisha Lewis is saying and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And she, like, was awful.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my goodness gracious, that's a lot. I didn't realize that was the story that you were going to be talking about. I have not been on that. That has not come up on my algorithm on TikTok or Instagram or in my news feed. So
yeah, same. But damn.
Yeah, but that's a drama. Wow.
Reserved
and yes,
only for Broadway.
Microaggressions of calling that Hell's Kitchen play loud. Like,
yeah, because you know it's a predominantly Black cast,
right?
And
it's the music is probably more. I haven't seen it. It's on my list. 6, Hell's Kitchen, and Death Becomes Her.
Yes.
Which, by the way, did you guys know Michelle Williams is in Death Becomes Her?
Yes, I did know that.
And sorry, shameless plug, I got to see Michelle Williams right down the street from my office on Monday. She was giving, this is perfect. She was giving a talk on mental health.
Yay. I love that.
Cool.
Yeah,
love
it was like really intimate theater venue down the street, Count Basie, or the Vogel. And she was there and talking about her mental health journey since having being hospitalized in 2018, I believe.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to see Death Becomes Her too.
Did I see what?
Did you go to the talk that she held?
Yeah, on Monday at 7 o'clock. It was great.
That's amazing.
It was cool. She's funny too. She's hilarious. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah.
Okay, Michelle, we'll have you on.
Yeah. Join us.
Sure.
Nanny's vouching for you. I guess we'll do it.
Yeah, we'll do it. She'll be our guest next season. We're already booked for season 3.
Well, damn, Steph, that was a big one, and I feel like I really want to go down this rabbit hole, but we've got to get to our topic for the week. So those are your Karens for the week, and now we'll dive right in.
Boxes
right. So today we are exploring the topic of therapy and mental health care. In recent years, it's definitely something that is talked about more than I think ever, certainly ever before in my lifetime, outside of those movies that I highlighted at the very top.
Which, by the way,
Right?
popped so many memory bubbles.
I know.
Ryan Felipe was all over my walls in 1998.
I feel like all of those movies for me were like serious. Like I watch for someone who doesn't watch movies. I have seen all of those movies.
You're right. We did not give you credit for all those drops of popular culture movies.
Antoine Fisher, especially. I don't know, you guys. I don't know what. I think I saw that at a very pivotal moment in my like mental development or something. But that one, it got me. I like love that movie so much.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes. So therapy.
I mean, that actor too. I saw him last year, some convention, at Hip Hop Ed convention that I was on. He's really fascinating. He lives kind of a private life and is like really.
He hasn't done a
ordinary.
ton.
Yeah. He does a lot of advocacy work, I want to say, for like education.
But also a small name, Denzel Washington. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was in that movie too.
Who's also on Broadway right now.
This is very, we didn't plan this, but it's working out great. So I guess I think therapy got added to our list like very early on when we were devising our plans for this pod. It's definitely a topic all over social media. Self-care is kind of wound into this. I'm guessing you see it too. But despite that, when I was preparing for this, mental health outcomes have actually been declining quite dramatically in recent years. I would love to debate why we think that is. The most obvious reason is, COVID, global pandemic, recession. There's a few things that have been happening. Yeah, there's just like, a couple minor things that have been happening in recent years that are in everybody's mind and causing some negative outcomes. But I think it's just interesting nonetheless that we have more attention on the topic of mental health care than ever before. And also a number of statistics that are showing that outcomes are rapidly declining. So I want to start by walking through some statistics that I found. I'll link all of the sources to this, of course, but wanted to just kind of like set some context and then just would love some reactions and thoughts around like why you think trends are the way that they are. So in recent years, and this is all going to be US centric just for reference. So US adults use of mental health care has increased from 19% of U.S. adults in 2019 to about 23% in 2022. And this has been a consistent upward trend. So that number continues to grow. The highest rate of mental health treatment is amongst 18 to 25-year-olds, which probably is no surprise. They're somewhere around 30%, I want to say. And then the lowest rate is for those over the age of 50. Yeah, not hugely surprising given just stigmas and taboo and whatever. Women are also significantly more likely to seek mental health treatment than men, to the tune of nearly 29% of women compared to nearly 18% of men. And despite all of this, there have been negative outcomes surfacing. So suicide rates are up about 30% since the year 2000. Wow. Almost a third of U.S. adults are now reporting symptoms of depression or anxiety. So I wanted to share all of that context because there's a lot happening here. I didn't go much further back just because there's a lot of numbers, but I think these trends are very clear of people moving more towards the use of mental health care, either in the context of therapy itself or in mental health medications. So, yeah, I think I'm curious from you two. Are you surprised at that? Like difference? Is there anything that comes to mind when you hear these statistics?
Well, the suicide rate was what shocked me, that because my initial thoughts when you were saying there was a downward trend in mental health, but an increase in people seeking mental health support, would that just be because more people are being diagnosed or like there's more language around symptoms, like people are discussing symptoms more openly, and all that kind of stuff. So you would think that, I would say diagnoses would probably have to go up if more people are seeking support for not common, but like openly discussed symptoms. Because now people are like, okay, well, so I shouldn't feel like this. Maybe I should talk to someone. Mm-hmm. So you would think then that if more people are talking to someone and maybe being even prescribed medication to support them, that you wouldn't see that increase in suicide rates. So that's just like...
Wait, can you say that one more time, Steph? The last part.
I was saying, like, if more people... Because there's more increased conversation around symptoms of depression and anxiety. And then so now more people are able to recognize, okay, so that's not common. I shouldn't feel like that. Maybe I should get support. So now they're going to see someone for help, and maybe they're even being medicated for whatever mental health. I'm surprised then that the suicide rate has increased if more people are getting help than before. Mm-hmm. That's the part that's shocking to me.
But I don't think that you don't have to be clinically depressed or have a clinical diagnosis to go to therapy.
True.
So these numbers of people going to therapy also include people who don't have clinical diagnoses.
Mm-hmm. So are you hypothesizing that the people who are going to therapy are not the same people who are committing suicide?
Yeah, I'm saying like that. Yeah, the numbers could increase because therapy has been destigmatized, but therapy is also a way that people are, to your point of using the language, people are understanding that they need that as a form of self-care, not necessarily because they have an actual a DSMV or whatever we call it, DSM-4 or whatever, diagnosis from their therapist. Mm-hmm. So the pool is larger because more people are using it as a way to, and I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. I don't have a clinical diagnosis, but I go to therapy. Mm-hmm.
Same.
So I think, so that's 2 out of 3.
So you're saying the people with just because more people are going to therapy doesn't mean people who have not all people who need a clinical diagnosis are going. And so the people who might need help from a clinical standpoint that could then lead to suicide are not getting the help that they're...
Yeah.
So there's still enough stigma that people who truly need help are not getting the help they need.
Yeah.
Not in all cases.
Not at all.
But I still think that the 30% rise in suicide rates is strange.
I think that no, I'm not saying about the 30% suicide. I'm saying in the first question
it's just
of
not for like.
What I'm reading is the use of mental health care has increased. Mm-hmm. But that's not because
I think that's a good observation.
Using it has a diagnosis and is using it because of a diagnosis. That's why I think the number has increased.
Though I've not yet been diagnosed, but like certainly anxiety or ADHD or something is at play here. So just I do think that is an important distinction, that I might be lacking a proper diagnosis, but that doesn't mean I'm perfectly mentally healthy.
We know. No, I mean, I get that. And I mean, I think that that's why people are interested in receiving the care. I think I would be interested to look at this number. I was having this conversation with my mother-in-law a couple years ago because she's a nurse. And I do also wonder about how, I think it was during Guess Who's presidency, Mr. Reagan, that they started to rid of institutionalized care. And when we started to see more people without institutionalized care, now we're seeing a little bit more homelessness. So I would be curious to see where homelessness falls into all this, because homeless individuals are not going to get the mental health care that they need, as we know. Yep. And I just would love to see that suicide demographic.
And homelessness, is there a correlation there?
Yeah.
I think you touched on a couple of things too that I think are important in this conversation. The first, and I realize it's the last on my list if you're following along in my notes, but the first, I think, most important thing is access to mental health care and insurance that covers it. And that is still a really huge gap in the United States healthcare system. And everything I've read in recent years would suggest that mental health care should be preventative care, just like an annual exam with your PCP. Yeah. And there is value in, some form of that to identify potential needs earlier and more often to avoid, if you're thinking of this simply from a capitalistic mindset, to avoid major costs down the line when people have major problems that could have been, in some way tempered or reduced. So I think insurance is something that consistently comes up in everything I've read of a gap for people who genuinely need care.
I would add to that, we're seeing right now, again, this is June 6th, 2025. If anyone finds these tapes, this is what was happening in the United States. But we're also seeing a slash of funding for the public education system. And so all kids having access to a school psychologist or a school counselor that would be able to provide some kind of free care is in question as we move forward. And there's all these other external factors that are, I think this is a part of this conversation. There's all these external factors that happen to you when you're a kid that you're so unaware of, but your body senses them, and your body holds the what is that book? Your body holds the trauma or something. Your body holds all of this, so you don't know why you're experiencing it, but talking to a specialist is really helpful in that, right? And I think we didn't have that language a couple of decades ago, but now we do. And so if we're talking about, opening that up to so that more people can access that and have free care during the day, it would start with our young people in the school system, so then they can get identified by the school system and then get the treatment that they need developmentally moving forward. But if we're starting to cut that out of the cost of our budget, then we're going to see increased rates or negative outcomes.
And not only cutting it out of the budget, but there is a movement from the conservative, MAGA people that they don't want SEL or social emotional learning even brought up in the curriculum. So they don't want us to provide these young people the language and stuff around, anxiety and depression and all that kind of stuff, and it's mindfulness, all that kind of stuff is under that umbrella.
Why?
Which I think another thing that I'm thinking about of like the change is that we've learned that it's like a nature versus nurture debate. Like sometimes that your mental health can change as you grow. It's not just something that you're born with, which I think was what the research was telling parents early on. And so it's you are susceptible to being in a mental health crisis, no matter your race, your age, your demographic, your how much money you have. Having a mental health episode can occur. That's just something that Michelle Williams actually talked about. She was like, I was at the height of my career. I'm touring with Beyonce. Like, I'm in Destiny's Child. I have everything. Success was seemingly like on my side, and I still couldn't get out of bed. You know? So I think that is an awareness that culturally we have to understand, is that, like, you know, it unfortunately we are unaware of the triggers that could cause an episode for somebody. And that deals with suicide too, you know, like these kids, these pressures, we are not understanding quite well what it is that's making them so, like, sad.
Hopeless.
Yeah.
I do think something that was very interesting as I was reading this Time article in particular was, gosh, I feel like maybe I said this last week, how when I was young, I would look at adults in any position of authority and assume that they knew everything, right? Like, if you're my teacher, you know everything about the thing that you're teaching, and what you're saying is fact. If you're my doctor, you know everything about the human body, and what you're saying is fact. And what I am coming to terms with in my adulthood is the recognition that that's just not true. Like, all humans bring fault to anything, and that's kind of the beauty of humanity and also the curse. And I think in reading this Time article specifically, that became clear to me on this topic as well, which is that mental health care is quite different from physical health care. Physical health, you can do a test for cancer and it's positive or negative. You could do a test for anemia and it's positive or negative. And that determines a set of, decisions you make in terms of somebody's ongoing care. But when it comes to mental health care, it's not black and white. There is a lot of subjective criteria. There is a lot of misdiagnosis or, prescription of medication that changes over time. And there's so much we just don't know or understand about this area of healthcare. So things often go misdiagnosed or mistreated, or, you have to run through a number of different medications before you find the one that really works well for you. And I think that that's something that, if you ask my younger self, would be really upsetting, because it's like, I'm asking for help potentially, and you still can't fix me. And like, if you're also simultaneously dealing with a mental health crisis, that could be pushing someone away as opposed to encouraging them to like continue and stay the course. So yeah, it's kind of, it's a very tricky topic because there's not one clear right answer, which is for someone like me, very upsetting.
That's your disease talking. I'm just kidding.
But it is.
I think, did in your research you come across a working definition for mental health care, or anything that you feel would help like understand like the difference between mental health care and physical care, like anything like that?
No.
Not trying to put you on the spot, but anyway, I think when you were talking, one of the things that it reminded me of similarly with like not like the definition being very abstract, is similar to what I experienced as an educator in the special education system.
Yeah.
Of like, so what is the goal, to be released from care, or is, you know what I mean? And so like
Yes.
there's this weird mirroring of like, wait, am I more crazy because I know my diagnosis and I'm identifying with my disease?
Yeah.
Or am I trapped now? Like, am I, because I'm always going to have this and there's no cure for it? Am I able to ever get out of this? Like, do I have to see a therapist for the rest of my life? That was something
Right.
that jumped out to me when you were saying like, people falling off of the therapy trend and ages 50 and up. It's like, well, is there a belief that after a certain amount of care, you stop?
You are like
you start
fixed.
you stop taking that medicine, you know? And I think that if we had a definition of mental health care that included that, that might help us to understand this, our approach to care.
I love that.
Like,
There's something, Manny, we can cut this if you don't want this in. But
cut! No, I'm just kidding.
you told Bob, when my husband was on his journey with his gambling addiction, he just recently did a podcast on that, so I think it's okay for me to say. But you told him about a program that he was participating in, and like thinking of it as medicine for essentially a chronic illness. So you had said something to the effect of like, if you were taking blood pressure medication for high blood pressure, you wouldn't stop taking it as soon as your blood pressure normalized. You would keep taking it because that means the medicine was working. Similarly for, like a 12-step program or something like that, if it's working, that doesn't mean you're fixed and you stop taking that medicine. You keep going because the medicine is working. So I thought that was like a beautiful analogy where it's like, this is a disease that is real, that some people are going to have to live with for their entire lives. And there's metaphorical and physical medicines that can help support you manage a life with whatever it is you're dealing with. And that is a lifetime of care, and that's okay. I think there's a stigma around the care itself. And so you think you need to either hide it or get fixed and move on from it, as opposed to just being okay with like, this is part of who I am, and I am treating my illness the way I would treat any illness that, is chronic. Anyways, that stuck with me. Bob told me you told him about that, and I loved that.
Aw, thanks. She loves me, guys. We'll keep that part in.
I just didn't. It felt very personal, and so I was like, well, if you don't want it in, we can cut it. But I do love that.
My ego likes it, so
I'll cut you down later just to even things out.
I get one compliment a year, you guys, and that was it.
That was it. You all heard it. I have proof.
June 6th, 2025.
If you guys didn't know the date yet.
I think the other thing that's interesting here, though, is that you mentioned, Manny, the DSM blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. We'll get it right one day.
I have it in this article, actually, that I'm going to panic search for as I'm talking. Diagnostic and
real, by the way.
Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM.
Yes.
The Time article says psychiatry has its Bible, and then it refers to that book.
Yeah.
It's a set of like diagnostic criteria for healthcare conditions, largely based on symptoms. So there is this Bible, if you will, that all mental health practitioners kind of reference. And the point of this was that this is like, it's outdated and not perfect, and we use it as a perfect source. And so like that is at the center. I mean, it's called the Bible of like of the
Red flag. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no comment. But yeah, I just think that is like such a perfect example of why this industry is imperfect. And we could maybe direct more research dollars to it to help with this problem that is getting worse, clearly, according to the statistics. But apparently we're taking funds away from it as opposed to towards it, which is disappointing and sad.
Yeah, and I think that there's something there about, like, you referenced like A Beautiful Mind and Cruel Intention, and I've even heard of some students who have to take like ADHD medication. It's like so much of this conversation is like, is it that we are trying to control and quote unquote create normal individual, that our world is not built, like where our mindsets are not expansive enough to hold space for some certain conditions. And I think in the medical field, you'll see conversations between parents who have young children who need a certain medication, like debating. That's the debate of like, what does this medication do to the individual, and how much of that is numbing the individual versus the dis-ease, right? Like what part of the dis-ease is causing dis-ease to the individual as opposed to society and culture?
Well, I think there's a little bit of both. So I've done a lot of research recently on ADHD because my son is diagnosed with ADHD and has to go to school and work within the construct of the way that we run school with an ADHD brain. And that is very difficult. And there is this stigma around giving children medication to help them focus. I will say from personal experience that if you're doing this in the right way with the right set of doctors and practitioners who are evaluating the outcomes and making sure that the care is appropriate for that person. Like my son's personality is no different whatsoever, and it should not be. They should not feel numb. Like that is years and years of medicating, like incorrectly medicating for whatever the set of challenges are. But I do think there is certainly the debate of our society operates in a certain set of rules and a certain structure, and for atypical brains, and I think it's important to use the term atypical as opposed to abnormal, but like there's kind of like a set of typical behaviors, and then there's just some folks that operate outside of those bounds, and that's fine. But for those that do, it makes it more challenging to be successful in the constructs that our society has built. And rather than reconstructing an entire society that has been stood up over hundreds of years, if there's medication to help support that and it works for those individuals, then great. The nice thing in this case about like ADHD medication is that it's only in your system for as long as it's in your system, which is a few hours. So it doesn't make lasting or permanent changes. You can choose not to take it on certain days. And the hope is that, one day you learn tools that allow you to operate effectively without medication, if that's your preference. But I think that is like, I shouldn't say I think. I know ADHD is like the most studied, the most understood, the most effective treatment is available. And for other mental health issues, that is just not the case. And those medications like stay in your system much longer, and they have a lot of other side effects that are very detrimental or can be very detrimental. And so like this is where this like subjective diagnosis becomes so potentially harmful, because people may be being treated for the wrong things, and then you have months of like upheaval when your body is adjusting and then unadjusting and like, you know, changing meds. It's like,
Or your like adolescence, right? Like
Yeah.
your body, your
Yeah.
hormones, like there's so many things that impact. And I know for like, I mean, when I was because I was emotional disabilities teacher, so like you couldn't diagnose kiddos with like schizophrenia at a certain age, like, and there's weird things like that too, with like even dyslexia now, like you can't diagnose them when there's very clear signs that like
yeah.
they're
Oh, my
hallucinating or that they have,
sister's going through that.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I believe their reasoning is because of like hormone changes or like different changes developmentally that happen with age.
And I
But,
mean, hopefully that's a sign that the science is improving, but I don't know. Like these numbers just scare me when I was reading these statistics. I'm like, it doesn't feel like.
That was going to be my point of like the numbers to me indicate that like as like when you were talking about systems and structures and our numbers increasing, that's an indicator to me that our structure is no longer working. That's where I was going with that conversation of like, if these are our rates and people are getting care and people are getting access and the science is there, then maybe there's something structurally and systemically that needs to change that we're not addressing.
Yeah, I
Because
feel
we're
like I
trying to
see.
fit people to
A certain mold.
a certain mold, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I see a lot of posts and memes and things that are like busyness and overscheduling is not a badge of honor. Like I feel like our society like requires us to be at this really insanely high level of execution at all times, you know. Like we've talked about it as parents, like what we are expected to do as parents versus what our parents did as parents is very different, and just the overscheduled that we talked about for our kids. And so when you're talking about somebody who it has ADHD and, you know, struggles with executive functioning and focus and stuff, but should we be this like scheduled? Should we be this back to back, you know, constant stimulation and, you know, just the overworked, the, you know, that there should be a change to our society as well.
Culturally, for sure.
Culturally. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because like you said, American statistics, right? So that is important.
Yeah, that's a
that
good point.
we, you know, also in our learning, speaking of like our growth as individuals, you know, looking at, you know, other points of the world, which I think Maintenance Phase did a episode on this, on the blue zones.
Yes.
Kind of debunked the myth of the blue zones. But, you know,
Yes,
looking at
it was a good one.
That was
I'll
a good
link it
one
as well.
Yeah. Looking at other areas in the world, did I share this last week of like the woman who, I can't remember what part of Africa she was from, but she was using like a basket, you know, one of those like woven baskets. I didn't share this last week. Anyway, sorry. I hope that this kind of is like a good analogy, but speaking of like poverty and how we view poverty and mental health, right? So she had one of those like baskets, and she was using cow dung to make the basket like shinier and like to have longevity. And her whole point was like, some people think that I'm poor, you know, but am I poor because I'm using cow dung, because I'm using the earth to make this basket last longer, when you're the ones who choose plastic that can't be rejuvenated back into the earth? You only use the cow to slaughter. I use the cow to pour back into like our environment and to renew the energy, you know? And so I think that that's an important point of like society, and like as Americans, how we navigate life is so fast, so complex, and our minds are like minds and bodies are disconnected. And then also, like, as humans, it's a little bit more than what we came here to do at times. And so, I think that that's just an important element of, like, culturally, we just navigate in a way that, like, makes our mental capacity and load beyond what I personally have discovered is appropriate. So I've had to, like, slow down myself. And I know, Steph, we've talked about, like, in the Black community, like, radical rest, and allowing for rest and not trying to keep up with the capitalistic society, because those are the kind of things that lead to burnout and mental health crises.
For sure.
I think that is a great place to stop for today. I would love any confessionals, any reactions, any ahas you had today before we wrap.
I feel like this came up with my Karen story from last week, I think it was, with where I wasn't seen at the doctor because I was 5 minutes late. And Monika, you said that speaks to our society, and that we're so scheduled in the, and how that doctor's office must run, and that, 5 minutes late wrecks their whole schedule, which means that they're probably overscheduling and, does not really allow for a much give. And so it just reminded me of that, because we talked about that. And I feel like it's funny because I am very overscheduled, as we all know. But I feel like what I'm doing...
Karen's nodding.
Yeah, big time.
It's hard because what I'm doing, I'm passionate about, if that makes sense. So it's hard to, because I'm trying to do it all. And it's like...
And you don't want to give anything up.
I don't want to give anything up. Well, because we need money. Like...
Capitalism.
Like, I need my full-time job to do, and I want my part-time job.
Yeah.
And so there's that. It's like I love what I do on the side, quote unquote. That's what brings me the most joy. But we have to afford, Quinny's got to eat.
And childcare.
And childcare and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Mine's not really an aha, but possibly a future episode. We didn't get to the fentanyl of it all, or the overdose of it all. And I think that is tragedy that we're experiencing, and I'd love to uncover that in this conversation as well, of, like, what these drugs are doing and why young people, now that when we know this, are still reaching for the fentanyl and these drugs that are, like, deadly. I think that that's something for a later episode, like the addiction and all that stuff, that you kind of alluded to before, and what that means that we do as a support to also destigmatize, like, addiction.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool. Guys, that was 2 compliments.
Which means I'm good for 2026 now too. Perfect.
Actually, no, because I have a birthday coming up, and you're going to compliment me on my birthday too.
No, I've already used up, like, 2025 and 2026. It's going to be full on roast for your birthday.
I'll compliment you.
Thanks, Dad.
Don't worry. I'll wear stuff down.
Angels.
All right. Well.
And now I'm in a mental health crisis. No.
On that note, thank you for listening to another episode of You Can Call Me Karen. Please leave us a review, like, and subscribe wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram, and I don't know, maybe we're on TikTok.
We are.
At You Can Call Me Karen _pod. Yes. And please feel free to hit up our page to access all the links we talked about. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye, bitches.
Bye.
And the fox, and the green fox, and the fox, and the blue one, and the fox, and the yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.